to John. Joining us now, Congressman Jason Chaffetz, Republican of Utah, chair of the House Oversight Committee, and a candidate for House Speaker. Good morning, Chairman Chaffetz. You've heard the descriptions of what happened this week. Total confusion, a banana republic, turmoil, crisis in the party. Chris Christie comparing this to Game of Thrones. And the Washington Post, Karen Tumulty, writing this. Less than a year after a sweeping electoral triumph, Republicans are on the verge of ceasing to function as a national political party. Mr. Chairman, how do you think Americans should see this?
Well, that was a little dramatic. Look, we have passed out of the House roughly 200 bills that are sitting over in the United States Senate. A lot of our frustration is with the Senate. It's with the president. But we got to change things. We need a fresh start. We have a gulf and a divide that needs to be bridged. We need a speaker, I think, who takes the communications realm and drives the discussion in this country about what it is we're standing for and what it is we're trying to do. And so we're going through that exercise because Speaker Boehner stepped down and the majority leader decided that we do need a fresh face, and that's in part why I put my name in for the spot.
You may be a fresh face, but do you really think you can bridge this enormous divide?
Well, somebody's got to do it. I would hope that Paul Ryan would do it. He said repeatedly that he won't. I do think there are other people that are better qualified, but I do think I bridge that gap, and that's the case that I'm making. If there's somebody better who can unite us, I'll support them. But, you're either part of the solution or part of the problem, and I've right or wrong, thrown myself in there and said, I think I can do this.
Well, let me tell you what Congressman Darrell Issa has said. He said you have changed and have taken a break from holding government accountable. That certainly doesn't sound like it would be easy for you to bridge any gaps.
Well, I don't think that's accurate. We've been very aggressive. People have seen me fighting everything from Fast and Furious to the IRS on Planned Parenthood to a host of things, Benghazi and others. Earned that reputation over 6.5 years. I've worked closely with my Democratic allies. Elijah Cummings is a good friend. We've done over, I think, 200 letters now to the administration. So I do things a little bit differently. But I think we've been very effective.
Let's talk about Paul Ryan. You mentioned him, and you said if he decides to run, you won't. Have you spoken to him, and what do you think the chances are that he will?
No, I think Paul Ryan, I have not spoken to him. I think he checks every box. He's got the great experience. He's a visionary. He understands the institution. He's a great spokesperson. And one of the things I think people love about him is that he puts his family first. And he's got young kids, and he's going to have to make that decision. But I think he'd be a wonderful speaker, just like I thought he'd be a great vice president or president.
Again, some more signs of chaos this morning, however. On Twitter, Joe Miller, the Tea Partier who beat Lisa Murkowski in the 2010 GOP primary, saying Paul Ryan is the absolute worst choice for Speaker. It would be putting the prettiest face on the ugliest policies. And the 40 House Freedom Caucus members, those hardline conservatives, say they are still supporting Daniel Webster.
Well, that's why we have these discussions, why we need to have an election, and it's partly why I put myself out there. So we'll see what happens.
What kind of compromises would you or a Paul Ryan have to make with those real hardliners?
Well, I think from the broad political spectrum, not just the Freedom Caucus, I think there is a need for some internal reform. That is how we bring bills up, getting back to regular order, how we offer amendments, don't offer amendments. Those types of things I think are frustrating to a lot of people. Bills need to move through committee. We need to look at our internal rules package itself. But I don't think you have to cut a deal with anybody. There's no deal that you have to cut. I think reputation of being fair, and that I'll hear all sides from the entire political spectrum. And really, the role of the Speaker is to be the constitutional officer that makes sure that the process is fair, it's balanced, we protect minority rights, and that we allow these good bills and ideas to percolate from the bottom up, rather than a top-down driven process where the Speaker is telling the body what to do. I think the Speaker works for the conference,
Mr. Chairman,
the House Republicans.
I want to go back to the beginning. You said that was a very dramatic description. It was very dramatic this week.
Okay.
Americans do look at Congress and say, what's going on? So whether you elect a speaker right away or not, what do you think the long-term effects of this will be on the Hill and also on 2016?
Look, the American people swept us into power because they wanted results. And we got to take that fight to the Senate. We got to take that fight to the president. And they haven't seen the results. Again, passing bills out of the House is one step, but we actually got to get those bills onto the president's desk because they don't like the current trajectory. And to suggest that it's all on the House Republicans is wrong. When they talk about the dysfunction in Washington, D.C., they're also talking about President Obama, and they're also talking about the United States Senate.
And I want to ask you quickly about a report this morning also that a former staffer on the Benghazi committee says he was fired from that committee because he was told to focus too much on Hillary Clinton instead of finding out answers about Benghazi.
Well, I could tell you, when Benghazi was first going, I was on the ground in Tripoli. I was the first member of Congress to be there. I've been there twice. I have spent a lot of time on Benghazi. Trey Gowdy is running a very professional, first-rate organization there. The hearing coming up on October 22nd is absolutely going to be, I think, a first-class presentation where everybody can ask questions.
Can you talk specifically about this person and why this might have happened, why he says he was fired?
I've never met this person. I don't know this person. What I read with the statement from Trey Gowdy and the committee is that it was absolutely false. I believe them, and I don't think it's accurate.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Thanks very much, Mr. Chairman. Next.